feel like Ren is the most love it or hate it character in Superstar. Kanan, Chisato, and Sumire generally seem to be, at worst, just liked. And while Kiki has the whole is she too mean to Sumire thing, again, generally she's well received. At worst, I see people call the other Leela girls forgettable. Ren, meanwhile, people tend to have the most extreme feeling towards. I know people who think she's the best character, a precious cinnamon roll who did absolutely nothing wrong, and others that absolutely cannot stand her. Similarly, especially when the season was airing, her arc episodes, 7 and 8, were by far the most divisive. So why is this all the case? Is Ren's divisiveness warranted? Well, right from the start, one thing Ren had going against her is being a pretty tired character type in Love Live. Ellie was the first mature but standoffish student council president who serves as an obstacle to the group and hates idols because of some tragic backstory, till she eventually joins character in Love Live, and immediately after that we got Daya. Ren was now the third time we were getting a character like this, and that's not even counting Shoriko and All Stars. The trope was tired, to say the least, and I don't think it helps that Ren basically looks like a fusion of Ellie and Daya, but with brown eyes, either. Potential issues people could have with Ellie and Daya's arcs is that their reasons don't justify their actions, and whether or not their joining the groups felt natural or made up for their previous behavior. With Ren, they basically tried everything possible to give her a tragic enough backstory to justify her behavior. Her mom's dead, and she's still grieving that fact. Her dad's a deadbeat. She's basically inherited the school and feels like letting it close would be failing her mother. She thinks her mom deeply regrets being an idol because trying to save the old school through the club ended like sunshine. She's out of money and on the verge of homelessness. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, why not add in that she has a terminal illness and her dog died? Okay, don't ever do that, the dog's adorable. Needless to say, Ren is retreading a lot of ground that was already getting really tired. They knew at this point audiences were getting sick of her character type. I would fully assume that's the reason why Shoriko didn't have this sort of thing in Niji Season 2. Is this entirely why she's divisive, though? Well, to dive deeper into Ren specifically, unlike Sumire, whose appearances are fairly minor and removed from the others in the episodes prior to joining the club, Ren plays a major role in almost every episode prior to joining. Early on, Ren and Kanan are basically foils to one another, a dynamic established right in episode 1 when Kanan first stands up to her. Ren's role is an incredibly important one to the season overall. Superstar Season 1 places a large focus on the personal baggage of the Leela girls. Each one of them has a lot of personal trauma they need to work through, and Ren is no exception. In that regard, Ren and Kanan are actually quite similar. Both have a specific traumatic event in their past that ended up severely affecting them in the long run. For Kanan, it was having a panic attack at her first concert, and for Ren, it was the death of her mother. Both of them are fairly popular and respected by their peers, but are removed from them due to their own anxieties. Both are also socially awkward dorks. However, while Kanan is actually very capable of being a leader and has a lot of friends, she doesn't believe she is, and often ends up in the role unintentionally. Ren, meanwhile, tries really hard to put on the air of being a competent leader and having herself together, while the awkward disaster Ren mainly comes out in private. Ren is functionally a successful Kanan. A lot of Kanan's self-doubt comes from her failure to make it into the music program. Ren is not only in the music program, but is one of its most esteemed members. In a way, she's what Kanan wishes she was, something she unintentionally uses to her advantage when trying to prevent the idol club from forming, saying it'll embarrass the school's music program. But she's just as flawed, and Kanan reaching out to her, realizing she has her own baggage and issues even in spite of her success, is a big moment as a result. For the first several episodes, Ren basically acts as an antagonist. In episodes 2 and 3, she tries to shut down Kanan and Kiki's attempts to start a club, and when that fails, she tries to demotivate and discourage them, and she even tries to get Chisato to not train them. During their actual performance in episode 3, however, she doesn't say anything, and her reaction is clearly one of conflicting emotions. She's noticeably not angry, There's no moment where she runs up to the club members and tells them it was all bullshit and they should give up, which was a standard to this point, and an absence I think is noteworthy. We don't see her direct response to them about their performance till the next episode, where she asks them to do anything but be school idols, and says she doesn't think they can win Love Live when they refuse. We also see in episodes 2 and 3 that Ren gets sensitive when the subject of her mother is brought up, something Kanan notices. Ren is notably completely absent from episode 5, not even getting a token cameo or a one-off non-sequitur scene like Sumire got in episode 2. This is in contrast to Ellie and Daya, who appeared in every episode of the series prior to joining and almost always played large roles. And most Love Live characters in general. There's exceptions, obviously, but still it's rare that a main character misses an episode entirely. It unspokenly reinforces the fact that she's very distant from the group at this point. Her next appearance in episode 6 is a major one. It's the first time we see her outside the context of a strict student council president. When she sees something she shouldn't, the school withdrawal papers which Hisato has hidden in her bag, we get to see Dork Ren for the first time. I honestly think she's really endearing here. This episode is important for her character. It's the first time we see her dealing with a situation she doesn't know how to approach. Her competent facade crumbles immediately. Her interactions with Chisato here are fun. The fact she's also interacting specifically with a fellow member of the music program adds to her perceived elitism, simultaneously humanizing her while also making you question her priorities. In episode 7, after beating Sumire in the school's first true student council president election, Ren announces she's changing the upcoming school festival to primarily focus on the music program, completely going against her campaign promises of trying to create unity between the school's two programs. Kanan tries to investigate, and Ren just ends up begging her to do anything but be a school idol, and when asked, she says she doesn't like them just because. Eventually, amidst the rising tensions of the literal class war Ren has started, the other girls finally discover her backstory I mentioned earlier. Ren's mom's dream was to reopen the school she once attended, and after she died, it became incredibly important to Ren to protect the school. And since she's out of money, there's a good chance the school may close. Explaining her motivation, and some of the reasoning for her seeming elitism, she believes prioritizing the music program is putting the school's best foot forward to encourage new students to enroll, and also subsequently setting the fandom on fire for at least a week. Yeah, remember how I talked about how Ren had the tiredness of the aloof student council president who's against idols because of a sad backstory but eventually joins the group trope working against her? Well, after School Idol Project and Sunshine, people were really tired of the we need to save the school plotlines, and this revelation was met with variations of holy shit, are they actually doing this again? Combine this with the fact that there are already budding discussions on if Ren's attitude and an inevitable change would be justified, and the fact episode 7 is where Kiki starts to become outright mean to Sumire to a very jarring degree. And, well, the fanbase was as split as the school for at least the next week. In episode 8, Kanan tries to ease the tension between the two programs, but the music course students are fine with Ren's decision, while the general course students remain pissed and want to form a protest. Even the club is divided somewhat, with Sumire saying it's not their problem to deal with, and generally not trying to help, while Kiki is decidedly on the side of the general course students and fully willing to switch to supporting them. The club finally gets an answer on why Ren doesn't like school idols. The story I mentioned earlier, her mom was part of the school's old idol club, and the club had tried to save the school. And since Ren couldn't remember her mom ever saying anything about this experience, and could never find any records, she thinks her mom deeply regretted it, and doesn't want idols at the school as a result. The group eventually finds some stuff left by the former idol club in their clubroom closet, and show it to Ren when she's about to make a statement on the festival. She realizes her mom never regretted it, and had in fact told her she loved it, but she forgot. She cries, and then we learn the principal knew all of this, but Ren's mom asked her not to say anything. She wanted Ren to figure things out on her own. Eventually, the students all work together to get the festival together, and Leela performs. Now a full group. At least for this season. Okay, so where do I start? I really liked this arc initially, and actually still do to some degree. I feel for Ren. She's a grieving girl desperately trying to do her best while unable to healthily deal with her emotions. The way Kana tries to help her is sweet. We see in these two episodes a lot of how they both deal with pressure and being put on the spot. Ren's actions are also somewhat understandable when you consider that she's probably not meant to be acting rationally. She's incorrectly making idols some embodiment of her loss of her mother and her mother's possible regrets. I really like a lot of the little moments in these episodes. Ren finally breaking when given her mom's old album, and her apologizing to the group, complete with her being hesitant to join because of everything she's done, till a gust of wind blows her forward, with the obvious implication it's meant to be her mom pushing her forward. It's all really dumb and cheesy, but goddamn if it doesn't get me. The outfits the club wear during Wish Song, a really sweet number that's one of my favorites in Superstar, are mostly pure white. Not only are they meant to be the outfits the old club wore, but the director of the series has said their simplicity is meant to represent a new beginning for the group. The power of new beginnings and the importance of letting go of our past regrets and baggage is the main theme of Superstar Season 1, and I think as a result, this arc fits that perfectly. However, especially on my most recent watch of this video, I can get why people feel like this is all a bit contrived. Ren's mom didn't keep anything from her time as an idol, despite saying it was one of the best times of her life, and Ren coincidentally forgot she had said that. The principal followed her mom's wish for Ren to figure things out on her own, and continued this even when Ren had no way of knowing this stuff was in the club room, and even after Ren had started a school civil war which had a very obvious source of a problem and a very obvious answer, which... yeah. Not helping is you can still argue, even with everything they gave her, she wasn't justified in being so preventative of the club forming. She basically comes across as a combination of the derisive readings that Daya just felt like, well, since it went poorly for me, no one else should be school idols, and that Ellie was just acting elitist. It's easy to think Ren may have possibly been easier on the club if they were in the music program. Which I don't think would be the case, but still, she's policing the students based on her own personal feelings. Making things even worse for Ren is that episode 8 is her last major role. Shortly after joining the club, Ellie and Daya both got episodes where they really got to show off their personalities outside of the student council president role. Episodes like No Senpai Allowed in School Idol Project, or We've Got Stewshine in Sunshine, were important in establishing their roles in the group, and endearing them to audiences. Ren never gets an episode like this in Season 1. In Episode 9, we get some fun interactions with her and Kanan, but in Episode 10, she plays a relatively minor role, and while in Episode 11, she gets the fun bit where she accidentally clicks on what's really obviously a Yuri game, that's it. In Episode 12, it's revealed the school has enough students enrolling for next year, and that her dad sent her a bunch of money, effectively making the whole teasing that Ren would potentially be homeless and the school might close, and all of the controversy that caused, pointless, since nothing was done with it. Again, in none of this do we really get to see her bond with the others. Kanan and Chisato have a long-standing friendship that existed prior to the series, and the series does a good job showing. Kanan and Kiki have gotten a ton of focus on their budding friendship by the end of Season 1. Kiki and Sumier get a big arc and lots of moments together. Even Chisato and Kiki you can reasonably assume are friends by late in Season 1. Ren, meanwhile, she gets a few bits with Kanan in Episode 9, I guess? I know ships don't really mean much overall, but I think it says a lot that the other four girls are all involved in popular ships with one another. Kuka, Sumi, Kiki, and Kanan and Chisato. Well, Ren doesn't have one. Obviously there are people that ship her and pairings involving her, but none seem to really be that popular in comparison. Season 2 has the potential to remedy her seeming lack of connections with the other club members, especially with the 4 new members basically representing Ren succeeding, at least for now, in keeping the school and her mom's dream of connecting others through the school and music alive. Maybe she'll get some focus with them? I could see them going the angle of her taking her role of senpai extremely seriously, and showing the antics that result from her not being as nearly put together as she tries to be. But I guess we can only speculate on that for now. Lover or hater, I think it's easy to see why Ren is the most divisive of the Leela girls. She has an interesting arc, and she makes a fun foil to count on for the first half of the season. Her dorkiness and how easily her mature leader facade crumbles are really endearing. She has a lot of great moments, and there's a lot of points where you, or at the very least I, feel really bad for her. But being a very tired character archetype and the lackluster execution of her arc, combined with the scare some of the plot elements being teased caused, and the fact she doesn't really get to establish herself in the group after the arc, are all things that she unfortunately has going against her at this point. Hopefully by the end of the season 2, this won't even be an issue. Hell, this video could end up being really outdated very soon. I kinda hope it is, in some regard. But for now, Ren will remain Love Live Superstar's most divisive character.